everybody. Welcome to podcast episode 57. Going to be joined today by Joey Gilkey, CEO of TitanX. As you probably noticed, I'm not in my natural habitat today. We're kind of chilling in the jungle for this one, but let's hop right into it. What's going on, man?
What is up, man? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for stopping by. It's always a pleasure to talk to people sort of outside of the logistics realm when transferable skills are at play.
From the jungle.
Yeah. Honestly, the background worked pretty well. It's pretty cohesive. It's really consistent.
I dig it. Yeah, man, it looks good. It's a good look on you.
Yeah. My coworkers know what they're doing, decorating wise.
That's right.
All right, man, let's get right into it. How did you get into sales?
Oh man. Well, I've got into sales and never left. So that's morphed and changed quite a bit. Yeah. So for me, actually, right out of college, I got into raising capital for a nonprofit, and so interesting enough, didn't have a sales experience, but obviously raising capital is sales. We're honest with each other.
Yeah.
But when you start doing that, you start rubbing shoulders with people who are well off and high net worth people. And so I guess I was good enough at raising capital that I kept getting job offers left and right from people who I was raising capital from. They're always like, hey, if you ever leave the nonprofit world, you got a killer career in sales ahead of you, and I have some intros I can make for you. And so I always blew it off, and I was like, nah, I kind of enjoy what I'm doing.
I mean, how does that process kind of go? I mean, what does that conversation look like when you're raising capital as a nonprofit?
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of it's about the cause, right? So this is a particular university ministry that I was raising for at the University of Tennessee, and so a lot of it was looking at who are key players in the market in Knoxville, Tennessee, specifically, and because a lot of folks, once you start making money, it's like, all right, what do I do with this, right? There's obviously the tax advantage of giving money. There's also the I just care about the cause type of giver and donor. And so for me, it was my job to kind of pound the pavements and just wine and dine and network with people. And so getting into those conversations is pretty simple. It's either one, you're looking for a tax break, or you're looking to give to the cause. So I had to figure out which one of the two were you.
How did your lead gen work there in that situation? Did you just have tech to do that, or was it just kind of?
No, dude.
Like, where were you getting these people from?
Bro, it was yellow notepad. It was business cards. It was shaking hands, going to little soirees people would throw in town, and the whole
boiler room stuff, man.
Just shaking hands.
Hardcore.
It's all about shaking hands and shaking hands, building relationships, and there's a metric shit ton of places you can put your money, when it comes to saving on taxes, and there's 1,000 different nonprofits for the same cause in a lot of ways. So it's what makes you unique. A lot of
I mean, that's a cool intro into sales for sure. I mean, I haven't heard that one ever in my entire life. Like,
that's how I got in, right? And there's one guy in specific, Nelson, who he was a donor, and he obviously liked my ability to kind of work a room and work myself into some big deals. And so he thought I'd be do really solid in IT, technical consulting and IT recruiting. And so he had a bunch of connections at a really large Fortune 100 company. And he's like, hey, if you want to kind of like skip the line a little bit, I've gotten in there. And at that point I was kind of like, yeah, raising capital for like private equity is very lucrative. Raising capital for a nonprofit is not. You see zero dollars in that. So at that time, my wife and I were trying to build a family, and so I was like, I'm going to go try to use my skill sets to make money for me.
I always have this question for people that do sales full time outside of logistics, and it's like, do you care? Like, does it matter to you what you're selling so much, or do you just kind of enjoy the act of it? I mean, does it really bother you what you're selling?
Like for me, I can sell anything. I can sell ice to Eskimos, right? And so I can do that, but for me, I lose interest in things really fast, and so I have to believe in the product, and I have to like who I'm selling to, like the market that I'm selling to. So if I don't like the market I'm selling to, and I feel like I'm selling, there was my career progression went, nonprofit capital raising to high-end enterprise IT consulting and IT recruiting to then selling commercial insurance. And then it went on to digital marketing, and then I went on to start my first company that I sold in
Is
2020.
it just me or does anybody sell you insurance? It's kind of like a meme job at this point, isn't it? Like, so, like selling
Yes,
insurance.
honestly, insurance is it's pushing paper and taking people out to golf, right? It's kind of a joke. Now I was
Yeah,
in
I mean,
commercial
everyone that
insurance.
wants to stop being a freight broker on Reddit, there's like a Reddit for freight brokers, and
Yeah,
every single time there's like a huge meme in that community where it's like, I'm gonna quit being a freight broker, I'm just gonna go sell insurance. Like it's
that's right.
always selling insurance. Like,
Well, there's personal insurance and there's commercial. I was on the commercial side, which is a little bit more legitimate, right? But that's where I'm for me personally, and I was actually in the trucking logistics space as one of my verticals, but I was going to they had a 300 truck fleet, and my goal is to sell a $500,000 insurance policy. So it's a little bit different than like, hey, let me sell you car insurance to your house, with your house.
yeah,
Um,
it's big ticket purchases. I mean, these are
but it was
high
boring, dude. It was
ticket
so
items.
boring. I couldn't stand it.
Okay, so let's segue that into, I mean, you had obviously a natural sales progression, a
That's
pretty
right.
unique one at that, I mean, sector wise. Let's
Mhm.
segue into like, what are you doing now? What is TitanX? What is your, current operation looking like?
Yeah, so TitanX is a software company. It's in the tech space, and it's built specifically for teams that are in sales making cold calls, right? So also a scarlet letter, if you will, of an industry of people who make cold calls for a living. But um, yeah, the
I mean,
story
I
behind
think LinkedIn's been a really good space for sales content, and I think
yeah,
the cold callers are kind of killing it right now. And I
oh,
watched
we're
like
slaying.
they do a lot of live dialing, and that's some of the funniest stuff you'll ever watch in your life. Like,
Yeah, I've been on a couple live dial shows. I'll still pick up the phone and call people, even though I'm technically supposed to be running a company, but I can't help myself.
yeah,
Um,
I love the live dialing content. Is some of my favorite content that I've ever come across.
It's so fun. Yeah. So the technology itself, TitanX, is our whole value prop is right now. If sales teams, let's just take in the logistics space, if there's a massive floor of people making dials, they make 100 dials, they might talk to 3, 4 decision makers. AKA they'll have a 3 or 4% connect rate on their cold calls. What our tool does is it gets them into 25% connect rate, so they can make the same 100 dials and have 25 conversations instead of 3 or 4.
Yeah,
So it's a
I
massive
mean that's a
productivity.
massive increase. And yeah, I've always heard, out of the 100 dials, the success rate and connect rate is always like under 5, under 6%.
Yeah, like my internal sales team right now, the last 30,000 dials, we've had a 23% connect rate. So
Wow.
yeah, we're humming.
I mean, so let's get into the whole. Did you start the company on your own? I mean, how did you? At what point in your career were you like, I'm gonna start my own company?
Yeah, so that was in 2017 was when I started my very first company, which was an outsourced sales development company. So you've seen them; they're a dime a dozen nowadays. They weren't as popular back then, so I was kind of early. Built a company called Tribe, which is outsourced sales development. We focus mostly on account-based selling, which is go find big fish, if you will. Had an exit in 2020 of that, and then I went and built the next version of that, which was what we called Apex Revenue, which that took off like a cannon. Um, and we kind of took the market by storm. And speaking of LinkedIn, we had a massive presence there.
What
But it was
country were you involved in, if you don't mind me asking, with the outsource kind of stuff?
U.S. Yeah, it was all U.S. based.
Oh, like the people working were
Yeah,
U.S. based.
yeah. I mean, we had like a legit operation. They're all full blown sales reps, SDRs.
Okay, no. I just have my brain's been ruined by outsourcing and trucking. Like I
Oh
thought you
yeah,
meant
yeah.
you
You're
had
talking
like
about like Philippines.
outsource people. Yeah, no, you
Yeah,
just mean outsource as in like not your company, like
right.
an outsourced company. Yeah, okay,
Right. So we were
I
building
got you.
Apex. Apex got pretty big. We started using a tool called Phone Ready Leads at the time. And Phone Ready Leads is now what TitanX is today. So I acquired Phone Ready Leads in August of 2023. And after that acquisition, ended up investing a lot of resources into the tech side of things. And we put all of our chips into what was then Phone Ready Leads is now TitanX. We did a rebrand earlier in 24.
So I mean, take me through that business model. So I'm assuming if I mean, like I said, I'm not a master of the subject. Basically, your company books meetings and gets people into the door of places that they want to be. Like that's the
That company,
premise.
Apex, yeah. Essentially, we opened doors, and we had a unique model where we would install a fractional VP of sales into your company. And so on the one side, we're drumming up and opening up doors and top of funnel pipeline type of stuff. And then the VP of sales is helping manage, lead, and train the account executives who are closers that belong to your company. And so that was always the pitfall we saw with companies, was they didn't have the ability to create their own leads. So that's why we would do outsourced. And then they had a hard time closing leads, which is why we created the VP of sales, who would sit on top of your account executives to make sure that they're closing the deals that we're bringing to the table.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, that's like the two-step process where, I mean, most companies I see, I'm not sure obviously how the internals work, but it seems mostly like they bring you, the meetings, and then if you close it or don't close it, that's on you. But
Yeah,
you guys
and
went that extra
most lead
step.
gen companies suck, if I'm honest. Like, they're just not very good.
I mean, like I said, I haven't had experience with it, but I feel like it's more of like a here's this meeting, good luck, not let's help you close the meeting. That's the second step. So.
Yeah, we had to build that model, or else it's a churn factory. You bring a customer in, you drive leads, they can't close them, they fire you. So I had to build a model that kind of tackled both sides of the coin.
I mean, just before we get into some more like serious stuff, how did you go through startup life and like starting a company? I mean, how was it for you? Were you scared? Was it tough? I mean, obviously it's one of the toughest things you can do.
Yeah, so my first company, this is back in end of 2017 when I started it. It was not my intention to start a company yet. At that time, I'd started kind of dabbling in the entrepreneurial world, where I was starting to research a lot more and figure out what do I want to do after my W-2 career's over. And me and the CEO of the company that I was at had a falling out in 2017. So it kind of just pushed me out the door to where I was like, well, no better time than the present, I
If
guess.
not
So,
now, yeah. Honestly,
yep.
getting fired has somehow always ended up being a good thing. I mean, I haven't been fired much. I've quit a lot. I think I've been
Yeah.
fired like twice in my life. But like quitting and getting fired, it's some of the best things that happen to you, because all the hopes and dreams you have that you wanted to accomplish, you always say like you're in a comfort zone, right? That you're collecting a paycheck. You're like, I'll get to it. But once you wake up, you get fired one day. You're like, well, I guess I'm gonna
So
accelerate
make
my
the spread
timeline
on
on
roll.
this.
Yeah. So that was, for me, jumping in. It wasn't. I mean, it was a little nerve wracking at first, because you go from a W-2 job at a VP level to making nothing, with no customers, and so I had to figure it out pretty damn quick, and ended up jumping in the deep end, just going for it. And I mean, had a lot of success really fast. And it wasn't
In what
without
like
pain.
industry was this in? Like what like at that moment, where did you start? Who did you start calling?
Yeah, I
Where did
targeted
this
marketing agencies, right, at the time. So I was the VP of sales of a marketing agency. So I just came out of that world. I knew the world super well. I knew I could blow those types of companies up. And so I had a couple of folks who I had gotten to know who were other marketing agency owners at the time. And so I went straight to them and said, yo, let me, like, at the time I didn't know how to price,
yeah,
right?
just
So my first customer was $500 a month. Like, hey, I will do
yeah,
your sales for you for $500 a month,
yeah.
at the time. And it was just me. So I was just doing it for a massive discount. And then, the next customer was 750, the next one was 1,000, next one was 3,000, 5,000, 7,000, $12,000 a month customers. Eventually it started to steamroll. I
Yeah,
started to figure it
that's
out.
like I have the same like with this podcast. This is like my first soiree into being completely on my own with the podcast.
Mhm.
And like I think I offered my first sponsorship. I think I offered 12 months. Like the price I wanted to charge monthly, I had offered the first person. I was like, I'll give you guys like 12 months for 3 months, whoever's the first person that believes in me. Because it's just me.
Love it.
Like
That's
I
what
was
you
like,
got
man,
to
make
do.
it something. Yeah. And then like, each one just progressively gets bigger and bigger. And when you're on your own, like it's your time, it's your investment. And if you like what you're doing, then I mean, it's just up to you. You can kind of just get. I mean, you got to start somewhere. That's the whole
That's
thing
right.
with pricing.
That's right. Yeah.
I
So
mean, what would be some big things that you would recommend to people if they wanted to, just start their own company?
the first is just know who you want to serve. So I'm a big fan of sell then build. So for me, it's have a general sense of what you want to sell, but it's more important about who you want to sell it to. And so there's a book, I forget what it's called. It might be called This Is Marketing or something like that, by Seth Godin. And he talks about find your tribe, then learn what they want to buy, right? And so that's how I would suggest it is go out and figure out who you want to sell to first. what are their pain points? What of those pain points can you help mitigate, solve for, etc. Take it super cheap, take it on the chin, maybe lose money on those first couple of customers. If you have that privilege. And for me, I started with a $9,000 credit card. Like that's all I had to my name to start the company, basically. And so go out there, figure out who you're going to serve. Only go talk to them. Make sure. So here's how I craft an offer. That's how I've crafted every offer I've had for every company I've started, outside of the one that this company that I bought. And I'm going to go to someone and say, hey, Alex, I know I can serve this market. I know that there's problems around sales that I can really help solve. And I think I know what you guys want, but I'm not sure of that. Can I pay you for your time for me to tell you what it is I think that the market wants? And I'm going to give you full permission to shoot as many holes in it as possible, because at the end of the day, I just want to get better. I want to make sure that you shoot holes in my assumptions. And they'll never make you pay, right? They're always like, I'm not going to charge you, right? But they'll,
I mean, because your approach was really solid. Yeah, like they're not going to try to, they're going to be like, I'll give this guy 10, 20 minutes because,
and you tell them and you're like, listen, I don't have anything to sell today. So there's nothing I can sell you. Obviously, if it turns into that one day, great. But ultimately, I want you to help me with the offer. My whole goal was have 3 or 4 of those conversations, get the feedback, take the feedback, internalize it, change the offer slightly, go to the next 3 or 4, give them the new offer, have them change it slightly. By the time you get to like your 8th, 9th conversation of that, like you've got the offer that a market wants. And the best part is those people, you're going to have 2, 3 of those 8 who come back to you and say, hey, if you ever, whenever you do launch this, like I'd love to be your first customer.
I think that's probably one of the smartest things I've ever heard in my entire life, as far as the approach that, like, yeah, exactly. Because I get these LinkedIn DMs and like I have like a lot of potential sponsor meetings, and people just crash and burn when they hit me up and they're like, hey, I know you're kind of in this industry. Like, can I call you tomorrow? And it's like, I don't know. Like, you didn't explain anything. You didn't like come across very genuine. And I mean, I think your approach, like that's something people need to watch just keep listening to that and listening to that and listening to that, because that approach is something that nobody's ever done with me. And I've been approached all the time to take random meetings. And I literally just made a post the other day. This guy explained nothing to me. I was like, yeah, let's hop on a call tomorrow. And I was like, what are you offering me? Do you want something from me? Like, what's going on? Like, what's the context? Like, why would I hop on a call with you? You've explained nothing to me.
Yep. So, I think a lot of people are just takers, and
they just want your time for nothing, basically.
Yeah,
and I like that element of paying them for their time and offering that. Like, if somebody took it, I'm sure you would have actually paid them too, because that's
And I did have like 2 guys who were like, yeah, sure, like whatever, and I've just sent them like a gift card or some shit. I'm really
hey, it's $25 at Starbucks. Enjoy one coffee, bro.
It is what it is. And so, I mean, I would have paid $150, for the value it brought me.
Okay, I want to understand this business model because I understand the premise of it. So you guys basically, like this industry, like not you guys specifically, but just the industry as a whole. So basically you say, I mean, you familiarize yourself with a certain industry. Like, let's say, oh my God, I don't know, bro. Like, I can't think of a good industry right now.
Manufacturing.
Sure, let's say manufacturing. So like you go out and you figure out manufacturing, you figure out how to like get, customers in manufacturing, and then you just basically go to every company that would want that business and say, hey, like I can get you guys meetings, and you guys are just doing the same thing. You're targeting cold calling, you're just pulling info. Like, it's the same thing as if I were to go call a whole bunch of shippers for free. You guys just find an industry and target a whole bunch of shippers for that industry. Like, is that like the premise?
Yeah, I mean, like there's a lot of strategy behind it, but
I'm not running
that company anymore, right? I'm running TitanX, but when I was running that company, the whole strategy behind it is, outbound comes down to 4 pillars: list, message, rep, follow up. So list is, do we have really solid targeting and data on who it is we're actually going after? Message is, okay, once we actually get in front of them, whether it be cold calling or otherwise, what is the messaging that's going to resonate with them from a value prop perspective, from a pain perspective, from a future pacing perspective? What do they want to get to, and how can we actually layer that into a cold conversation? Rep is, how do you get reps, sales reps, to actually deliver that message to that list, right? So for me, I had 110 employees when I was running Apex. And so it's like, when you have that many people, how do you replicate that that sales rep to be able to deliver a result by delivering message to that particular target market in that list. And the last is follow up. This is the lost art in sales is the follow up game. So no deal is done or no deal is won on your first touch point. And so, that consistent follow up, having a process behind how you follow up, making sure that, every prospect always has a next step attached to it. Always work yourself backwards from the closest to the money backwards. Like that's what you have to continuously build. And so we would just do that over and over and over again at scale for companies. And I was in that space until, 23 when I acquired this company.
Yeah, I mean, that's like, obviously it would make sense to utilize a company like that instead of trying to, I mean, first of all, if you don't know how to do sales, then you're not going to be able to do sales.
Yeah.
And then you'd have to go out and find a full-time employee or build a whole team. And obviously it would make sense for a lot of people to just hire an outside company that already is good at this entire thing, because sales is something you have to continuously, it's like the game of chess. It's never over. You can always keep learning sales. So.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. I mean, I want to go out quickly, if you don't mind, to talk about your tech stack. Obviously, it's an industry I'm not very familiar with outside of like Zoom Info, Seamless AI, Lucia. I mean, what kind of tech goes into the sales industry for you?
Yeah. So in terms of like, what does my company use, or what does our company do?
I mean, it doesn't really have to be what you guys use, or what would you like recommend in terms of like getting leads for like just any kind of tech recommendations.
Yeah,
I mean, stuff you've used in the past.
I'm a phone guy, right? So I'm not a big believer in cold email. I don't really prefer or like LinkedIn DMs, although they work for people. So I'm historically phone, and therefore my tech stack is going to reflect that. So I mean, when it comes to CRM, that's pretty standard these days. You kind of run into one of two big ones: Salesforce or HubSpot. There's obviously some other players out there, but those are the big two. And then from there, I'm looking at a dialer. The best dialer in the market by far is a dialer called FrontSpin, FRONT spin.com. And so we use them heavily. We've used them for years now. In my opinion, it's the best in the market. And then when it comes to like data, so at the end of the day, to do sales well, you have to have good data, because if you don't have good data, then, garbage in, garbage out. If you got shit data, then you're going to get shit results, And so for me, I'm not a big fan of the data vendors. There's actually, if you're on LinkedIn and have followed me for any, sense of time, then you would know that I had this big beef going with Apollo.io. Apollo sucks, just for the record, for anyone listening. I'm sorry if you guys have Apollo, but
yes, that I have a big beef with an entire company.
I do. It's at the CEO level. I had this massive video that went viral where I just completely roasted them, and it went viral. So,
I mean, what sparked it? Just briefly, I don't really want to get messy with it, but like, what?
Yeah, what's the beef? Apollo is a data provider, so their whole thing is we provide contact data for your prospects, and so, which is fine. And their data is not very good, and that's normally okay, because there's not a ton of, even Zoom Info doesn't have great data. They're a customer of mine, so I kind of have to play nice to them. But so with Apollo,
I mean, but let's say in terms of what is bad data to you, like just emails that don't work, phone numbers that don't work, just like useless data.
Yeah. So one benefit of my company, TitanX, is we do what we call phone scoring. So we score the quality of phones before you ever call them, which is how you end up getting 25% connect rates.
Yeah, somebody was just explaining this to me the other day on a previous podcast that also wasn't very much into logistics. They were telling me like their software basically calls all these numbers, and then everybody that picks up, they get scored to like obviously good connectivity rate, and then they give you your list. It was Tony Brophy. That's who was explaining this to me.
Oh,
I can't remember the company.
Tony,
he might have just been talking. He might have just been talking about your company, to be honest. TitanX. Now that I'm looking back on it, that was like a week or two ago. He's like, yeah, there's this company, TitanX, and they score all your stuff, and they give you your list back.
Yeah. So funny enough, Tony's an SDR. I gave Tony his first ever shot in tech sales.
Okay. So you guys are connected. So you're the guy. He literally said, "There's a guy that gave me my first ever shot," and he said that same sentence, bro. So you're just that guy. Like,
I'm that guy, and so.
This is awesome. This is like super connected. I like so.
Yeah. Right. Full circle. Yeah, he doesn't know how to explain my product, obviously, but
I mean,
um,
how would you explain it? Because he just said, "There's a company, TitanX, and you give them your data, and then they give you back scored phone numbers."
yeah,
Like that,
that's
that was
correct.
basically,
But how we go about scoring it is not with like pick up the phone and call them. So like for us,
yeah.
there's a lot of data and signals that we're looking at the phone number level, and so we take phone numbers through, we score them through different means and different sources. And through that, it spits out a score of, hey, this prospect needs to be called because they're high propensity for the phone. This prospect has complete, terrible data. Therefore, you can't call them or reach them because the phone number you have is bad. And so, full circle back to the Apollo conversation. I got receipts on everybody. That's why they're afraid of me. Is because Apollo's data, ZoomInfo's data, Seamless's data, all their data comes to me from their users because they want to score the data. And I know whose data is good, whose data is bad, and Apollo's is notoriously terrible. So I tried to help them once. They're pretty snobby about it, and they're like, "No, our data's great." I was like, "Well, it's not. Here's receipts."
Yeah, like my company's existence is to score your data, and
Exactly.
I think
And
I
so,
know.
and at one point, I called them out on LinkedIn, and their VP of content at Apollo was like, "You're always talking about our data being so bad, but you never show." And I was like, "Are you sure you want that smoke?" He's like,
Yeah, do
"Show
you
us."
actually want it?
And then that's when I made this 8-minute video of me just eviscerating them
But how,
online.
okay, so how do they go about collecting this, like you said, garbage in, garbage out data? Like, how are they collecting it? Why are they providing data that's subpar? I mean, what's the? I mean, it's a good problem to have because that's your existence right now. Like, your
Sure.
company is like thriving based on the basically bad business of other larger
Yeah,
data providers.
and good.
But
Like the better the data, the better our tool performs, and so there is a benefit there to having good data. But in terms of Apollo or any of these data providers, I mean, it's fairly incestuous, right? Like it's a lot of them are buying data from data brokers and other third-party data providers, and so they're basically grabbing data from this group over here, grabbing it from this group and this group, and just smushing it
okay,
together.
yeah. So just like a bunch of independent people
You
providing
can think of them like
data at a large
they are a
scale,
data broker themselves. They just happen to know how to take data in,
aggregated.
query it, and then present it and
Yep.
sell it to chumps like you and me. And
So basically, this is like the people they're always warning us about. They're like, "Oh, like they're stealing your data. There's data brokers. It's on the, but it's always like on the dark web. But this is just like
yeah,
actually
well, and
just
they
real
also
life."
have as part of their terms and conditions. So if you ever use Apollo, if you ever submit data to their platform,
Yeah, they
um,
add you to it.
they add you to it, and they add any
Yeah, I
fee.
heard about this.
Yeah, so you're essentially selling them your data without getting paid. You're actually paying them.
Yeah, they're just providing it.
That's right.
Um, Okay, so Tony Brophy, let's just touch on him for a second
Cool.
because he was explaining a lot about you, and I'm just still in shock. How was my accent? Was my accent like
That
decent?
was great.
I think
I was really surprised.
I think I did a good Tony. It's just funny to me because I remember that sentence. He was like, "There's this guy that gave me my first shot in tech sales." That
Yeah,
sentence just sticks out like a sore thumb, and now I get to
so
sit down
funny
and
how
do
he got
about
the
it.
job, man. It's so funny.
Yeah, can we go over that? I think he might
Yeah,
have said it on my podcast, but
yeah. I mean, he
I
was
don't know.
just one of those dudes who, his whole thing was, I want to get in tech sales, and I don't even know, that's a terrible accent. I want to get in tech sales, and I want to work for their,
But okay, so he's in Ireland this whole time, and you're in
whole
America
time
this
he's in
whole time.
Ireland,
Okay,
and
so how did you come across him like at all, like on LinkedIn, right?
well, he was asking people around, so he started to ask around like, hey, I want to go learn from the best of the best. Who's the best of the best? And our name kept coming up. Joey Gilkey, Apex Revenue. Joey Gilkey, Apex Revenue. And so he ended up reaching out to us, and he ended up cold calling Justin, who's my COO, and was like, "Give me a shot." And Justin's like, "I don't think you got the goods, kid." And he's like, "I want to prove it to you." And so he's like, "All right, let's role play." And when I say it was a terrible, terrible role play sales call, it was so bad.
Just
But he
terrible.
was
It was just
hungry, and so
garbage.
Justin was like, "No, no chance." And he's like, "All right, well, let me go practice and get better, and let me come back." And he goes, "You can do whatever you want to do, but this is so bad." And so basically, the
Just
next
no
couple days
faith in
after
him at
that,
all.
none, zero. And so what he did was he went and hit up every single person in my company. Just, hey, I want to learn from you. Hey, can I role play with you? Hey, I want to work for you guys. I want to learn, from whatever. Could you take a call with me? And then he got to me. He's like, hey, Joe, I met with Justin. I met with JJ. I've met with cool, we're getting with all these people. I would love to role play with you and see if you can help me make me better. Even if it doesn't turn into a job, I still think you're the best in the game. I'd love to learn from you, something like that. And so I
Can
took
we
the
go
call.
through it like a minute or two? Like, what does that even mean? Like, what is the conversation like that supposed to be like? Like, how does that? I mean, like, if
Role
we were
play
to do it right now, how does that work?
in terms of role playing.
Yeah, like, what does that mean? Like, what is that conversation? How do you start a conversation like that?
Are you talking about like with Tony with me? Or are you talking about with?
No, like just like us right now. Like, if we were to like do that, like, how does that? Like, how do you test like a salesperson? Like, how do you?
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I just tell them, listen, like, have you done any research on my company? Cool. All right, I want you to sell me my company. And
Okay,
so
yeah,
I was like,
that's
we're going to
smart,
practice a cold call right now. I'm going to pick it up as if I'm cold. I want you to start, right? And so I'll be like, ring, ring. Hey, this is Joey. And then you're going to roll into it. And then as you roll into it, I want to hear how you handle it. I want to hear how you talk. I want to hear how you ask questions and so on. And so he role played with me. I could tell he'd gotten a little bit better just from the role plays he had done. And I gave him a bunch of pointers as well. And then next time he went and talked to Justin, my COO, Justin's like, dude, this kid's still not ready, but like his ability to like take coaching and learn and get better, like
yeah, he's
exponentially fast.
coachable, teachable,
He's
definitely,
like,
and
I can
hungry.
work with someone like that. And I was like, cool, I'll let you take a chance on him because Justin was building that side of the company. And so I
I
was
mean, you
like,
said like the interesting sentence though. It's always the same in logistics as well when you're cold calling shippers. It's like you need to know who you're calling. You need to do some research, not spray and pray the same script. You need to actually target people. And like you said, like, do you know my company? Do you know what we do? Okay, sell it to me. Because whoever is cold calling you needs to have done that research. And everybody's always preaching it. Like, it's better to make 30 targeted calls a day than 300 spray and pray calls. I mean, in logistics, like, I'm
yep,
probably
I
in
totally
other
agree.
avenues too.
I mean, if you have a product or service that's of any value, we're talking like we're not selling widgets, right? We're selling large contracts and services, right? Like every at bat and every opportunity matters. And so if you're
Yeah, like
founder
that's I was trying to explain this to somebody the other day about sponsorships regarding like the logistics industry for podcasting, and I was trying to explain to him that like the services we're selling are like very expensive, and for the most part, things are not like it's not like a $29.99 thing for your kitchen, like some little gadget. Like every sale matters, and the reason that things are the way they are is because you're selling to fleets, you're selling big ticket items.
Yep.
So you only really need like a couple sales. This isn't a volume business, right?
That's right. That's right.
So
yeah, I gave him a shot, and he took the job, and he did great. Obviously we bought this other company, and so we had to shift our focus on what our team needed to look like, and he and a lot of other folks just didn't make sense for us to fit him in.
No, let's get away from Tony. It was just a really interesting thing because I didn't understand. I missed the point that you were the guy he was talking to me about.
That's right.
But I want to get into just something before we get into some more tips and stuff. What's your like craziest cold calling story or like craziest situation or two that you've gotten yourself into on a cold call?
A guy who's bringing his wife to the hospital to deliver their kid. Literally
on the cold call, like you cold called, and that's what
I cold called the guy, and he's like walking out to his car, and he's huffing and puffing, and I'm assuming he thought that I was someone else calling, and so we like talk for like 10 seconds, and I hear his wife screaming, and I'm like, "You got to go," and he goes, "Yeah, I'm going to the hospital with my wife," and I was like, "Why are we talking?" He's like, "You called me," and I was like, "Yeah, but you didn't have to answer."
Yeah, why did you answer like a random number in that moment? Like I wouldn't be answering my phone probably for
and then he
anything
just goes, "Good point." Click. So yeah, I was a part of a birth, I guess. That was my craziest story.
Yeah, I mean that
listen,
is.
I get cussed out. I mean, I don't make as many dials myself these days. But
Yeah, I mean those aren't even like funny or interesting because I mean that happens. Like I mean I have like my update team in logistics gets cussed out by a driver every day. Like they're technically cold calling them for an update. They're just getting reamed out all the time. So I mean that's just common shit when you're doing sales. Let's do some outbound sales tips, man. I mean, what are some of the things you said to Tony? What were some of the things that were helping craft people, and what are some top couple things that would change a salesperson's
Well, I think one
abilities.
thing Tony would probably say is like it really comes down to the mindset first. And so like there's a particular mindset that if you're going to be successful in sales, that you're going to have to develop. And there is that. I don't know if you've ever heard the phrase or the quote that says, "The man who thinks he can and the man who thinks he can't are both right." Right. And so a lot of things that I do when it comes to ramping training and onboarding reps is to make sure first that their mental's good. And so a lot of folks come in with a lot of baggage, right? They're just they're afraid of the phones, or they're afraid of rejection, or what have you. That's the issue. It's the first thing you're gonna have to unlock. If you don't unlock that, then all the training and other tactical stuff you can do just doesn't really matter. And so we'd always start with, where is their mindset at? We call it being. Like, what is their being today? It's more philosophical, but at the end of the day, we all want a particular result, right? And a result requires, before a result, you require action. Well, requires action. How do you create action? Well, you have to first do thinking, right? If I don't think something, I won't create an action. If I don't create an action, I don't get a result. But then you have to ask the question: is what creates thinking? And it's this idea of being, right? Your being. Or you can, in other words, say your identity, right? So what is your identity? Because your identity creates how you think, and how you think creates how you act, and how you act creates the results you want. And so we always have to start with, what's their identity? What are your self-limiting beliefs? The man who thinks he can and the man who thinks he can't are both correct, right? If I go into something and I know, like, I'm going to get my ass handed to me, well, guess what? You're
Gonna
gonna.
happen.
Yeah. And if you're going into it with confidence of like, no, I'm going to close this deal, one way or the other, at some point, I'm going to close this deal, right? You got a shot, right? And so the man who thinks he can, the man who thinks he can't are both right. And so you got to start there with the reps. If you don't start there, nothing else matters. Once you address that, and that's a lifelong thing, right? It's not something that like you just like
Oh
training
yeah,
in there all of a sudden
of
fixed.
course.
But
That's the thing that I hate with people, especially when it comes to like mental health. Like just like random, when somebody's sad, there's like, oh, just like, hey, like just stop being sad. It's like, bro, like these like things are such like cliche advice things, and it's like it doesn't work like that. These are lifelong like missions. Like it's such a simple idea, right? But then you get left with yourself, and you get left with the world around you, and it's like the man that thinks he can will think he can, and the man that thinks he can't might think he can one day, but you can't expect everybody to be perfect immediately, right?
yep. And the first thing is just being aware, right?
Yeah, exactly. Just understanding your issues, understanding that you have that problem. Like that's
Yeah.
always step one. That's like some people never even get to that point, man. Some people just never even are aware enough to
Yeah.
understand their issues.
There's this phrase by his name's Werner Erhard. He's kind of a philosopher, and he talks about you must become authentic about your inauthenticities, right? And so authenticity is, not to get woo woo on you, but just there's wavelengths and there are vibrations, and there are certain states of being or emotions that are higher than others, right? People who live in this constant state of like love, they have a certain feeling that comes off of them that's different than someone who's like constantly angry, right? You can just feel it off someone. Well, authenticity is the highest, level there is, and so being authentic requires you to be authentic about where you're inauthentic, right? To your point, that your self-limiting beliefs, the things where you lie to yourself, and things like that. So we can get off the philosophy part, but after you get the mindset, then it really comes into, the actual like doing of the work. And so back to my
How do
earlier.
you guys deal with people that are scared of the phones? Like, I mean, do you even try? And what's some advice you would give to somebody that's scared of just
Yeah,
picking up the phone?
I mean, for me, the phones is just a mechanism or a channel in which I can deliver a message, right? It's an ad channel, right? It's no different than Facebook ads or cold email or whatever. It's the phone is an ad channel that happens to be delivered through my voice as opposed to some creative online. And so when someone starts to understand, like, oh, I'm just delivering an ad, right? I'm delivering an ad to a guy who wasn't expecting my call. That's the first thing. The second thing is
That's
realizing,
such a like unique like approach. I don't
it
think I've
works.
ever heard somebody like explain it that way, because you're right. Like it's the same thing as you getting hit with like an ad on YouTube or like whatever. There's ads all around you, man. This is just a different type of ad.
It's a different medium. And so the other part is realizing that the only purpose for an ad is to sell, right? And so we know that the phone is just a channel to deliver an ad for us to sell. Well, what is sales? Sales is simple. Sales is a transaction between two parties based on one thing: trust. Right? If I don't trust something, I don't put money out there to then get the good or the service or whatever it might be. And so, if all I know is that sales is a transaction between two parties, this is just a simple way for me to get into a transaction where I can develop trust and then sell. The other thing
Okay,
is,
this is actually like a perfect like situation for this. So I want your honest answer to this question. If you had to cold call Donald Trump and sell him a Yugoslavian wine, how would you do it?
put me on the spot. That's a great question. If Donald Trump was in the market for wine, and Yugoslavian is what I'm trying to sell. Well, the first thing is, I have to break the ice, right? So, excuse me, God, dude, I'm coming off a flu, so apologies for the
Yeah, so
audience.
am I actually. It's like day 1 or 2 of me not being
Yeah,
sick.
I'm
So
on day
it's all good.
one. So the first things first is when you're cold calling somebody, you have to be able to break the ice and get through the conversation, or get to the point where I can even talk about what it is
Yeah,
that
the
I might even,
product.
right? And so when I'm cold calling someone, there's a very specific way that I cold call that opens up an opportunity for me to even start talking about Yugoslavian wine, right? So if I'm calling you and I'm like, hey, Alex, I'd call and say, hey, Alex, Joey Gilkey here. Actually, first time I've reached you, I was hoping you might have a brief moment to help me out.
Yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
sure. What you got? Cool. Yeah, I appreciate that. Again, my name is Joey Gilkey. I'm with Yugoslavian Wine International. Yeah, so Joey Gilkey with Yugoslavian Wine International. I know I caught you out of the blue here. I was hoping that, just in this brief moment, I had a couple questions I might ask you real quick. Let me stop real quick. Have you heard of us before, Yugoslavian Wine International?
Yeah, no, of course not.
You've
Nobody
not.
has,
Okay,
probably.
perfect. Well, that's exactly, Alex. That's why I'm calling. So listen, I know you have Trump wines and Trump vineyards, and you have all these different things. The reason I'm calling you specifically today, Donald DJT, is because I wanted to ask you a couple questions about how you guys are currently sourcing your wines and things of that nature. I know you guys have the best of the wines, right? As he does this little
The best.
the best wines. And I don't know if you guys are in the market for expanding, your lines at all. But typically, when I talk to someone like yourself, at your status, who already owns a very successful wine, they're always looking for what's that next berry, right? What's that next vintage that we can now bring to the market? I don't know if that sounds like your world at all. Am I completely off base?
Okay. I'll take you off the spot, man. It's solid. Yeah, like, I get what you're saying, and even like you came up with in a split second, like Donald's making wine. It's still like you're selling like a story, and
Yeah, yeah, it's a
it's
total
not a
shit
very
show, but
typical
that's
approach. Like obviously, yeah, you had no time to prepare. That's just like a random on the spot thing.
yep.
But I mean, that's my point. In 5 seconds, you were able to craft a story that I wanted to listen to and I wanted to be a part of, rather than like, hey, you want an air purifier? It's like
Right,
how
exactly.
some cold calls. Like I got cold called recently. The guy was like, hey, like I'm selling air purifiers. And I was like, that's like fucking cool. Good for you.
Great, man. So it's
So,
Walmart.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. Like you have like that storytelling too.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, obviously, so is that why you prefer, obviously, in the pre-show, you told me you prefer cold calling over cold emailing or any type of text outreach. Is that why? Like, because obviously you have a chance to bring your personality and you have a chance to sell a story, and it's
I'd
sort
say
of like
that's
an
like a
experience.
secondary reason. I mean, the biggest reason for me is the phone is the only channel in which I get bi-directional feedback from a prospect. Right? Meaning, so if I send you a cold email, I'm going to get either a yes, a no, an FU, or no response. Right? But I get no context for why, right? Like why no, why FU, right? Whereas in a phone, it's a conversation. I have the privilege of having a conversation with you where I ask a question and I'm gathering intel, because even if I don't get a yes today, I'm now gathering intel for my future outreach to you in the
Yeah, you
coming
can
weeks,
craft
right?
another approach. You have some learning moments.
And so I love the phone for that reason. Same thing. If I talk to you and I'm like, hey, Alex, do you happen to be the guy who sources wine for Donald Trump's whatever? You'd be like, no, that's not me. That's actually Jerry over and whatever.
Yeah,
Okay, boom.
they
Well,
start pointing you to the next place
I
to
now know
go.
it's Jerry. I would have never known it was Jerry before. You would have just seen it my cold email message as irrelevant and not responded. I would have kept going
It's
after
probably
you.
going to be Uncle Jerry. Uncle Jerry is going to be
That's
the
right.
one
That's right.
that you want to speak to.
Yes. So
Okay, so yeah, the phone
fine.
obviously for I like that. I think I've asked people that, and I don't really ever know what they say, to be honest, because it's never like appealing like that. Like you're right, like that's a good way to explain it. Do you have any customers in the logistics space at all? I think we kind of touched on this pre-show, but can we kind of go over that?
Yeah, CR England is one. Dynamic Logistics is another big one of ours, at least in terms of spend. Those guys are doing some crazy cool stuff. So with Dynamic Logistics, before they started working with us, there's an actual chart that shows this that they delivered to their board. But before, when they were just trying to figure things out, they were, if you look at their chart, about half of their conversions are coming from email, half are coming from phone, and total conversions per month was like 20, right? After they started working with us and they started seeing the power of the phone, especially if you can get a 25% connect rates, excuse me, it went to where now 90% of their opportunities come from the phone, and they're getting like 70 or 80 a month. So
Wow.
from like 20 something to 70, and only half are phone, to now 90% are phone, and it's 3-4 times as many.
So explain this to me for you guys. How does it work? Like how do I as a customer approach you guys? How does your company obviously like how does the service work? It's like if I said to you today, hey man, I want to use you guys, what's the next step?
Yeah, it's very simple. So TitanX, it's data in, data out. So you would take the same list that your team is already going to build and already going to call on, right? So let's just say you're using a Zoom info. You'd build that same exact list, and instead of sending that list directly to your CRM or to your dialer or to your outreach platform, you send it to us. We score it, we categorize it, we send it to you. You now action that data based on how we've categorized it. So we have a platform where you submit your data, you map in some fields, all the scoring happens in the back end. You get that file back. That file goes into the system where it would have in the first place, except now it's categorized and scored in the right way. So now your team's going after the right people.
So how long is that process gonna take roughly? And also, I know you're kind of sick, man. I'm also kind of sick. We'll be out here in the next 10 minutes.
No, you're good. Just flu's a ton of fun this time of year with 2 kids.
Yeah, I slept the whole weekend, and tell me about it.
Yeah,
but yeah, how long is that turnover from the top? You lost 15 pounds.
Yeah, I'm a big dude. I'm like 6'3", 250. So
yeah, we're like I'm like maybe a little bit taller than you, but we're like the same weight. Like,
yeah,
we're like this. We're basically the same size and weight.
Yeah. So the data when it comes in, we have different scoring models. But the typical scoring model takes 4 to 24 hour turnaround.
Okay, so that's like awesome.
Bring a list today. It comes back later today or tomorrow morning. Your team's calling on it by tomorrow.
Are you guys charging like? I mean, how does the pricing structure work? Is it like by the size of the list, the type of that? Like, I mean, how does that? Do you have tiers of like different type of grading? I mean, how does your guys kind of structure?
Yeah, so we based it off of a credit model. So a phone number, like one individual phone number scored through our scoring algorithm, is 1 credit. Okay. And so companies use us on a subscription model, so they're subscribing to a certain amount of credits per month.
Yeah, like 1,000 numbers a month, 10,000. Yeah.
Exactly. So we started 1,000 credits a month, $450, and then that obviously scales and grows. We have some people who are doing
I know we don't gotta go through your entire structure. Obviously, like I'm not gonna put you to say like people are gonna hold you to stuff. It's just general. I was just curious how you guys model. So basically, I buy all these credits. I give you guys my info, and 24 to 48 hours later, I just get my info back, and that's it. Our transaction's over.
25%. Yeah. So it's on a subscription. So it's most companies who come and work with us are doing it month in, month out. Right?
Yeah, it just pairs up with their new info that they're already getting from their provider.
Yep.
Yeah, I like that credit system because that's how like Lucia. Like I just gave my buddy Lucia to try out through a recommendation. He's like, I'm gonna buy X amount of numbers a month. So then he just runs over to you, buys the same amount of credits a month, and just pair him up.
Very simple.
Yeah, like what was I gonna say to you now? Yeah, okay, that's obviously very simple. Actually, that's what I was gonna say to you. Any closing thoughts with TitanX? Anything you want to kind of Like, who's your ideal customer? I guess
Yeah.
anybody that's using
Yeah, I mean, we got a
cold calling.
handful in the logistics trucking space. Obviously, you mentioned a couple, CR England, Dynamic Logistics. We're about to work with Axel Logistics, who's a large one here in Tennessee.
Yeah, I know, actually. I used to
And
haul for them actually back when I was a
oh,
trucking
really?
company.
Oh, no way.
Oh yeah.
And so, our sweet spot is teams who are committed to the phone, right? They're using the phone substantially in their business development efforts, and we work with teams as small as 2 sales reps to as big as 1,000. Like Dell is a customer of ours; they have 1,000 sales reps.
Oh no, I'm gonna hit up my boss and just tell him like, oh, you guys should like link up. I got test it out. Why not? Like, I mean, it
Yeah,
can't hurt, man. I mean,
it's
everybody's
easy.
always like that. That's
Figure
the
it out
thing.
real
You gotta.
fast.
Yeah, that's cool. All right, man. I want to just get into some fun stuff with you. We're out here in like the next 5 to 10 minutes.
Let's do it.
I thank you again for stopping by, man. You've been like an absolute pleasure to talk to just about sales. Most people in sales don't do a good enough job in conveying their message, which is funny to me because they're in sales, so they
Yeah,
should
you
be
got
good
to
at selling.
message. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to be good at like telling me. Like the worst part is when you're in like a meeting and somebody's doing a tech demo or something for you, and like they just suck at selling. And you're just
And
sitting
they're
there
just
like, yo,
reading
bro, like
their
what do
slides.
you do, bro? What is your service? What are you trying to explain to me? Like, I feel like anyone in sales needs to be good at just telling me what the fuck they're doing.
That would be the prerequisite usually, but
Yeah, you
these
would
days,
think. But anyways, let me just I don't know, maybe the live show. Maybe it's the I've been told a lot of times the fact that it's always live gets to some people. And like that's fair, but if you cold call for a living, you should maybe maybe be able to get over that. End of my rant, man. What are you doing when you're not cold calling people? What hobbies do you have? Are you into sports or I mean you're a big guy,
yeah.
you play basketball maybe.
I live on a 70-acre ranch, and I shoot guns pretty much. I got 2 little kids, so I don't have much time for anything else. So I just shoot guns and hang out with the kids.
Yeah, I would just scoop like an ATV, go out, shoot a couple guns,
Yeah, I'm
rip
still
around, build a little course.
My wife's like, all right, you're done with the razors.
Was there any alcohol involved or just
No,
went to
dude, it was
ride?
just we had one of the wheel wells locked up and threw me on a barrel roll on a highway at 60 miles an hour with no helmet on.
Oh,
So
you were on cement, like
yeah, it was after we were up on these
oh
trails, and it was after a full day of ripping the trails, and
yeah,
we were like,
just
hey,
the
let's
rip
go
back
down the
home.
highway to the river and go wash them off, and
Yeah.
decided to open it up, and next thing you know, I got
Oof. All right. Well, 70-acre ranch and shooting guns seems a lot safer and more chill than riding ATVs and doing barrel rolls on
yeah.
cement. So I'll give you that one. And I mean, having a family is obviously a hobby in itself. So, any sports? Do you watch any sports?
I'm big into UFC, so MMA, and so I'm pretty diehard when it comes to that. I played football from the age of 5 until 22 after college. Actually,
What position did you play?
my helmet's somewhere back there, over here.
Yeah, I
Played
see
tight
it.
end.
Yeah.
Played
Oh,
tight end
tight
in
end.
college.
See,
Yeah.
man, I always wanted to play tight end, but I wasn't fast enough. But I had the hands, but I was so slow, bro. they're like, nah, you're just gonna play O line, bro. Just forget about that. You can't run.
Put you on the line. Yeah. I played
Yeah,
tight end, and nowadays I watch some college football. I'm not big into NFL.
I love
Yeah.
tight end though. That was like the coolest position because you just get to like fucking
Oh
run around
yeah,
and catch the ball.
big
Then
body
you don't
guy.
have to like. I mean, wide receiver, you got to be mad fast. Tight end is just some like huge guy that can catch it not too far away and just like hit people.
That's right.
You know.
You're that big target the QB can always rely on.
Yeah, tight end was my favorite position, but I never got to play it. As far as music goes, this is I mean, country music. That's pretty fair,
I'm
I guess.
eclectic as hell, dude. I will listen to like country one day and just like hardcore, like trap rap.
Yeah, just whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah, I mean
mean,
that's fair. I actually got sick of listening to the same 10 songs, so I did a lot of driving today. I put my Spotify on like all,
yeah.
and I realized I was like, wow, I listen to a lot of crazy stuff. When you put like
I'm
shuffle
all
on
over
your
the place.
entire playlist.
Yeah, if it's summer around here, I'll jam some country, but as a whole, I'm alternative stuff.
Yeah, I'm the same. Just like whatever. If it's good, I'll listen to it.
Throw some Kanye on. That's kind of my jam.
All right, man. You have one final sales tip. If you could leave anybody getting into sales with one piece of advice for the rest, like their career, what would it be?
Sell a product you believe in. It's boring, but it's like it's really difficult to get good at sales if you don't actually believe that the product's going to deliver.
Yeah, No, I'm the same way. Like all my sponsorships are like people that like I like their product because I'm not like I can't be genuinely selling people anything if I hate it. Like it'd be hard for me to get excited about it. I wouldn't be able to like tell you to like do something, you know.
Sales is
You
hard
have to
enough.
like
Yeah,
yeah,
I'd probably give
exactly.
one more tip, which is like, listen, like, get used to losing. You know, if you think about baseball, you know, you're in the Hall of Fame in
Right.
baseball if you bat 300, right? Which means you've got out 7 out of 10 times. And so, in sales, you're going to learn far more from your losses. You know, there's a lot more surface area for you to learn from in your losses. But just realize, like, you can be in the Hall of Fame in sales batting 300.
Yeah, that's actually pretty solid. I like how you like have like analogies, but like they always make sense at the end.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm an analogy
'cause, like
guy.
now I'm thinking, I'm like, yeah, shit, man. Like you miss 7 out of 10, you're in the Hall of Fame.
That's right. That's how it is, man. And
That's a
you do
good.
pretty good living, making millions of dollars. You know.
Yeah, getting out every time except for like once or twice out of every 1,000.
Yeah, and if those 3 where you actually get on, you know, those 3 where you don't get out, if you can hit home runs while you do them, that's great. You know,
Yeah.
singles.
Yeah, they always say in sales, man, one call, one client can change your life, man. It's definitely
Truly
true,
can.
especially in like higher end
Even as an
industries.
entrepreneur, it's just one deal. One deal can change.
One deal away from the Ferrari, one deal away from the mansion, man.
Or
David
the
Goggins
farm.
style.
That's right. That's
Hey,
right.
I got one last question I forgot to ask you.
Yep.
Is like regarding UFC. So I was really heavy into UFC with my uncle when I was younger, and I
Mhm.
was like a Tito Ortiz, Chuck Liddell kind of era kind of guy
Yeah.
where I was following it. But what's your like favorite fighter of all time, like ever?
Of all time, I mean, it's got to come down to John Jones. Um, you know, in terms of just like the best fighter of all time, in my opinion. But if
I
I'm
mean,
like
you could
my
do like top
favorite,
three, bro.
yeah,
Like you
top
could do like
3.
a
I mean, like
top three.
McGregor's gonna always be up there just because of what he did to the game, and like he's just
Yeah,
a total I mean, everything around him's entertainment. And then I'd say outside of that, just looking at like fighting style, Israel Adesanya.
yeah, I like that guy still. Like I know all the fighters. I just don't really follow it. But, like I know of the current fighters, but Israel, yeah, that guy's just some next level guy. I
And
think.
honestly, Sean O'Malley, it's newer.
Yo, Sean O'Malley has been my favorite fighter for some
It's
reason.
I'd
Like
have
when
to
he
say
was a
he's my
kid.
favorite fighter right now.
Yeah, because he's just so tall and lanky, but he just like knocks everybody out.
Precision.
I don't know. Yeah, I like that guy too.
You never know. You're gonna get hit with the left foot. You're gonna get hit with the right elbow. You just never
Yeah,
know what you're gonna get hit with.
yeah, I really like that guy too. All right, man. I got 2 last questions for you, and we're out here. So
Let's do it.
regarding train and rail transportation, how many chuggas come before choo choo?
2.
2. That's the division of 2. That's fine. I'd take 2 over. Some people say like 10 or 12. I'm like, that's way too many.
I like chugga
So,
chugga. No, I'm chugga chugga choo choo. Yeah, I'm gonna go 2.
yeah, too. So I love when people say it out loud or you see them start doing like this with their
Yeah.
fingers, or it's gets me every time. But all right, man. Final question. One of the funniest questions and my favorite like part of the entire show, especially when it's like bigger interviews. It just makes me laugh even harder. Regarding chicken wings, when you eat
Mm,
chicken wings, do you prefer drums or flats?
flats, 100%.
Ranch or blue cheese dipping
Ranch,
sauce?
easily.
Breaded or non-breaded?
Non-breaded, the sauce is on point.
All right, so I found Serbia is not really known for chicken wings.
I could
Obviously, I lived in Canada most of my life, and
Yeah.
I could get good chicken wings. Serbia makes them, but we don't know how to. For some reason, nobody knows how to just put sauce on top of it and shake it in a
Just
bowl.
dry.
Like we have, yeah, you just get like a really good dry chicken wing, but like the sauce is, and like you need the celery sticks and you need the dipping, like you need the whole thing. We haven't got there.
Yeah, you guys a little behind.
Long story short, I moved to a city. They have chicken wings. I've been eating them a lot more lately because like they're there. Flats are terrible, bro. Like, how do you eat it? Like, I ate like 50 chicken wings a day or 2 ago, and every flat that I had, I was like upset, like actually upset trying to eat it, bro. Push the meat out of the bone in the middle. Like, how can you
The
like that?
strategy, man. You know the strategy. You got to
Do
take
you do
it.
that thing where you like crick it and
You
then
got to
you
twist
pull
it,
it?
pull a bone out, and then just one swoop.
All right, man. You
Way to
got
do
0 for 3 on chicken wing choices. I'm gonna leave it there, bro. Maybe you'll be in the Hall of Fame if I ask you 9 more chicken wing questions.
it. Fair point.
Hey, thank you, man, for coming by. Let's keep in touch. I'll definitely check out, TitanX with my operation. We'll see how that goes.
Good deal, man. Thanks for having me.
But thanks, bro.
Bye.
Oh, just jumped the gun there a little bit. So that's going to be the end of podcast episode 57 with Joey Gilkey, the CEO of TitanX. If you're in a cold calling industry, if you're making a lot of cold calls, if you're getting a lot of data from, the data providers that we've mentioned in the show, hit up TitanX. They're going to help you score that data and help you be more effective in your industry. That's it for me. Have a good night, everybody.